guitarist Mick Burgess, and I'm now backstage at the Clooney 2 with Damon Johnson from Black Star Riders. Damon, how's it going?
It's going great, Mick. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and now your entire family.
You're now leaving Black Star Riders after 3 albums, and everything seemed to be so perfect. We're looking forward to album number 4, and there was an announcement, big Black Star Riders announcement. We were all expecting the album news. What? Damon Johnson's leaving. I couldn't believe it. So, how long have you been thinking about this, and how difficult a decision was this to make?
Well, to answer your second question first, it was very difficult because I love this band. I love writing songs with the guys. I'm so proud of everything that we've done. The biggest challenge for me has always been not just so much time away from my family in another country, on a different continent, but it's also about the calendar. And it's kind of hard, I think, for people to understand that. But when you make a band your main priority, what that also means is that business controls your calendar. And speaking for myself, that there's so many things that I do when I'm at home. I do a lot of writing with other people, recording with other people. Sometimes I get called to do some kind of a performance setting with, say, an all-star band and things like that. I love doing that kind of stuff, and so often I've had to cancel things because I would commit and say, yes, count me in, I'd love to do that. And then, 6 weeks later, we got these dates and we're going to, the Czech Republic for 2 weeks, and, and that's really what kind of started it right there. But that almost sounds, I don't want any of my responses about why I'm leaving to take on any sort of a negative connotation, because it's been so great. I started kind of thinking that way even as far back as maybe even into the Killer Instinct era. It was like, man, this is so difficult to make plans to do anything else outside of Black Star Riders. And if we were a band the size of Muse or Coldplay or Guns N' Roses, then that's a different conversation. You're generating so much revenue. Hey man, you just bring your family with you. You take out the big suite in the top, the penthouse at the Ritz-Carlton, and they come and experience Europe, and then it's great. This is a blue collar situation, and I came to Ricky and Scott first, and I said, hey guys, this is kind of where my head's at, and we talked about a scenario of maybe downsizing a little bit and touring in shorter increments and things like that. And I completely respect that they feel like they want to continue to tour for long periods of time. They want to try to build it in some other countries. I totally get that, man. If we were working more in North America and Scott came to me and said, hey man, I want to maybe not work so much, I'd be like, we need to keep working, man. We need to keep going. So, those are the things that kind of add up to it. When I started this solo record, there was never the thought that I would be doing that full time. It just started as another project in the midst of all the other calendar chaos. So I think, I feel so great about my new album, and I just know that I can kind of draw I look at it like a 300-mile radius around where I live in Nashville. So that gets my home state of Alabama. I can play towns like Huntsville and Birmingham, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, Little Rock, St. Louis, even up to Chicago and Detroit. I think I'm going to be really busy.
Yeah.
And,
and close to home.
Close to home. I would have never been ready for something like this, Mick, had it not been for Ricky and the songs that he and I had written together, and for Scott, to even commit to doing something like Black Star Riders.
Yeah.
You think a guy like Scott that's a legend, and Scott's in his 60s, and a lot of my friends that are the same age as Scott, they're looking at slowing down a little bit and being on the golf course more, and no, he wants to rock, and I love him for that, and I respect that.
Yeah.
So the good news for me is all the things I just mentioned. The good news for them is they can absolutely go full speed ahead and You know, they don't have to worry about that one guy that always goes, the tour's how long? What? 7 weeks? Can't we do 3 weeks? You know, it's really kind of been that way from the beginning.
I get the impression when I've interviewed Brian Downey that he jumped at the end of Thin Lizzy before Black Star Riders started for that very reason. He said he just wanted to do a few shows. He didn't want to have the vision of touring relentlessly like what you have been over the last few years. And he just wanted to take a step back. And he was up in Newcastle a couple of weeks ago and he was speaking about that. And he said he was very happy to see you take the music on, but that was the time for him to step off and take it easy.
You know what? And we certainly respected Brian's decision. Yeah. No one more so than I did. You know, because I don't even know if the other guys realized how much work it was going to require. I have famously said, even in some other interviews, you know, when we were Thin Lizzy still in 2012, and we'd written some songs, and when that phone call came that, well, you know what? We're not going to call it Thin Lizzy, but we're going to, you know, Nuclear Blast still wants us to record the songs. We'll come up with another name and we're going to do something else. I said, sounds like a good idea. I'm out. I'm not doing that because it's too much work. It's going to be too much time away from home.
Yeah.
We're middle-aged guys. That's what, you know, that's why it's not a cliche, it's a fact. Rock and roll is a young man's game.
See, I thought you were one of the driving forces behind that, wanting to take that forward and write new music. So,
well, I definitely was. I mean, there's no, and that was the thing that pushed me on to do it. You know, I mean, I that was my first reaction. You know, but Ricky and the management guys, you know, we kept talking about it, and I knew the songs were great, and I was as shocked as anyone that All Hell Breaks Loose did so well. We got so much support at radio, and the fans have been great. So, you know, I haven't really talked about this, Mick, to anyone. You know, I did a couple of interviews in London, and we talked a little bit about it. You know, I wish I had this really nice, neat little 3-sentence thing, like, well, this is what I'm doing, and this is why it is. It was tough, man. It was a tough decision.
No, I think your answer's perfectly understandable. You know, I can see right from, you know, even when you were in Thin Lizzy, when we were talking about music, how everything seemed to fall into place for you. Working with Scott Gorham as your hero, you know, you moved on from Alice Cooper.
Another hero.
Yeah, exactly. To work with Scott Gorham, and you got to write with Ricky Warwick, and it would just seem so great. And every time I've spoken to you, it's been great. So I do understand how this can be such a difficult decision, but your family's got to come first.
You know, some people might find surprising that this first started entering my brain when we were actually in the United States opening for Judas Priest. It was Judas Priest, Saxon, Black Star Riders in arenas all over America. You can't get better than that. You just can't get better than that. It was great. And, you know, the other bands treated us like family. It was so fantastic. But, you know, if Black Star Riders is going to gain more traction in a country the size of America, then what they're going to have to do is tour and tour and tour and play small rooms to small crowds. And, you know, I just feel like the clock is ticking, you know? I mean, these 6 years that I've been here, Mick, have gone by in a blink. Just like poof, you know? And it's like a friend of mine said at home. He says, well, you know, now look at the future, okay? What could you do as a solo artist in the next 6 years? You know, how far could you take that? I wasn't ready to try something like that 6 years ago. And again, I just can't say enough about Ricky. My respect for him, my admiration for him, my gratitude to Ricky. I felt like after Brother Kane, that the whole kind of artist thing had just passed me by. I was recently divorced, and I was starting a new life with Linda, and it was just tough, you know. But I could play guitar well enough, and enough people knew me that the phone would ring, and I was able to, you know, work and keep busy. But Ricky he's really changed my life. I don't know how else to say it. He's totally changed my life for the better. it was exciting for me to play my new record for him because he hadn't heard it until we've been traveling. And, it was great for me to be able to say, hey, mate, you inspired kind of a lot of the concepts in this, because there are times I would be like, oh, if Ricky and I were writing this together, this is what we would do. And it just helped me kind of stay focused, have a vision for how I wanted the song to turn out. So it's time. I don't look at it in any way like, oh, I should have done this 3 years ago. Not at all. This was the right time.
The day I kept coming round, coming on to heaven fire. I won't dance on shaky ground, coming on to heaven fire. Landing zone way up ahead, coming on to...
That's enough of the past. Now, the future. Your new album, Memoirs of An Uprising, is out very soon. I've been very fortunate to have an advance copy of it.
Oh, you've heard it?
I have, and I'll be reviewing it for a magazine, so it's on my list, so very positive.
Thank you.
When's the actual release date?
I'm going to release the physical copies to all of the Pledge Music supporters on schedule, which is November the 9th. We're having a big show in Nashville, and a lot of fans are flying in for that. And it's going to be, a great celebration. I'm looking forward to that. But I'm kind of building a little bit of a team to help promote the record, and several of these people are in Nashville. So I didn't really come across this until about a month before we started this tour, Mick. And they gave me some good advice. They said, look, let's meet those pledge obligations, get the physical, out, but let's give it a couple months to kind of set up the real push, like at radio, digitally, on the streaming, because every solo record I've put out to this point have literally just been projects.
Yes.
It's not been like Damon Johnson, artist, It's just been, hey, Damon did an acoustic record, Damon did an EP, Damon made a live record. I put those out, I put those on Spotify myself. I'm pretty savvy with that kind of stuff. But, a 13-year-old kid with a laptop can put his song on Spotify as well. Doesn't mean anybody's going to hear it. So, I want to try to give this music as many eyes and ears as I can. So I'm definitely looking to treat it like a legitimate, release.
How would you describe it to someone sitting down facing you?
It is definitely, in some ways, kind of indicative of, my whole musical past, man. I'm such a journeyman. There's so many styles of music that I love, and I've never really, I've always hoped that I didn't have to be pigeonholed into one thing. So, Southern rock, modern rock, blues rock, classic rock. I love all that stuff, man. Every one of those kind of styles are represented in some point on the record. Shivering really is an important song, man. That was really the song that kind of enabled me to see the entire record. When my friend Jim and I wrote that one, I could just see the whole album. I was like, man, this is the one that's going to start the story, kind of set the vibe, and then everything else will, go from there. So I knew that was a really special song.
So are these co-writes? Who is your co-writer?
These are co-writes, man. I have a longtime dear friend from Alabama. His name is Jim Troglin. But when we were playing in bands together, even before Brother Kane, his stage name was Johnny Blade. So everybody in Alabama knows him as Johnny Blade. Johnny is really eclectic. He's kind of a savant in a way. He just hears music constantly. And we did a tiny little project together right around the time that I ended Brother Kane, and we called it the Motor Belly. I don't even think it's on the streaming anymore right now. But it was us getting inspired, and I loved the things that he brought to me. And again, really quickly, much like Ricky and I, we wrote these songs and we recorded it. And it's my wife's favorite thing I've ever done, by the way. She's like, you should do more like the Motor Belly. So when I came up with the concept for this album, I went right to Jim and I said, hey man, I want you to write these songs with me. A lot of the lyrics are very autobiographical, and Jim and his wife are really best friends with my family. So he remembers some of the turmoil, that I had gone through in my marriage, and And I said, hey man, we're gonna write about all that. He goes, hell no, we are not. He goes, that was rough, man. I'm like, well, that's why we need to write about it.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
rough, but we came out the other side of it, and so he's so proud.
So it's a positive slant on a rough time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I like that description, Mick. It is. It's a positive slant on a rough time, and I'm proud of the fact that there are songs like Dallas Could Have Been a Beatdown and Making Peace with This Wicked Beast, because there's so much fun.
Yeah.
Very kind of ZZ Top. There's some Clutch influence in those songs. That's what I love about both those bands. There's, great, interesting lyrics, but not necessarily. It's still a good time.
Testify or say goodbye. Tell me no secrets, tell me no lies. Get up on the stand, look me straight in the eye. You gotta testify or say goodbye. You gotta.
Who's in your band on the album? Who have you got?
I'm proud to say I've got the same guys that played on the EP and my live album. Jared Pope on drums, who I've been friends with now for well over a decade. Tony Nagy on bass. Tony Higby is the other guitar player. And, they all live in Nashville. That's another component about this that's so easy. It's so simple.
And they'll be doing live shows with you as well.
Yeah, man. They will be. I mean, they're all involved in some, other things. As most musicians these days, you kind of have to multitask. I mean, obviously now, the future for me looks different. So we may be working so much that those guys can maybe step away from some of their other things. I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see.
Yeah. So how long did you spend on recording the album? And did you record it in Nashville?
I did. I recorded the drums in 2 days at Nick Raskulinec's studio. Nick was gracious enough to let me get in there with his engineer, Nathan Yarborough, who did both.
Yeah. Was Nick there while you were recording?
Nick was not there. He was not there. So, he's because I wanted Nick to do the record. He wanted to do it, but he's getting phone calls to do Alice in Chains, and Hailstorm, and Korn. He ain't got time to mess with me. So he said, "Hey man, you can produce this yourself." He goes, "You know how to do it." He goes, "I've worked with you. You see songs in their completion." He said, "So do it." He goes, "Anything you want to play for me, let me hear it, and I'll give you some thoughts." So I remember the 2 days before we cut the drums, I very quickly played him like these rough demos, and he'd say, the drums need to go to halftime right here. I'm like, okay, write that down. And then you need to double the length of that bridge. That's a good bridge song. Okay, write that down. So all of that went really fast, and I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned. It's like if you're saying what you want to say in the lyric, that music stuff just works itself out. So I don't want to get too bound up anymore, getting kind of bogged down in the music. It's like, look, either it's a great song or it's not a great song. I feel like these are 10 great songs.
Yeah.
Jared's one of the best drummers in the world. I'm not going to sit there and micromanage his drum part.
All that glitters has been sold to buy the living in. I'm spending days alone, trying to cross the road.
How's the reaction been from your people buying it on Pledge Music? What's been the most popular pledge?
Well, I mean, the most popular pledge is clearly like the vinyl and the CDs. Enough of my fans. My fans for the most part are older, so they still love that format.
Yeah, same here.
But we've had a lot of fun with it, man. Some fans have bought like rounds of golf. We're about to start doing that. They're going to come into Nashville. We'll play golf together. Some have bought the Epiphone guitars, which I'm going to sign for them and send that in. Doing some guitar lessons. That's cool. There's a friend in Nashville that helped me run that whole pledge thing, and he had this great idea about these bundles. They're like mystery bundles. So my wife and I just loaded him up with boxes of stuff that she has been wanting to get rid of forever. Because she would call this guy Jay and go, "Hey Jay, what about these posters? And I got these old cassette tapes from the Second Brother King record." He goes, "Yes, yes, everything." So if a fan bought a bundle, they might get, an Alice Cooper signed Callaway golf hat, a a Brother Kane show poster for when we opened for Slash in 1994, and a guitar pick from my first tour with John Wade or something like that. I didn't expect the Pledge to do as well as it did, and because it's done so well, it allowed me to really go farther with the artwork, with the CD. I mean, man, this thing is a piece of art now, man. The layout is incredible. The cover, Stefan and an illustrator work together. It's iconic, man. And I mean, it's like I want it framed and hanging up in my house, man. It's such a beautiful, powerful image, and the fans have given me this incredible moment to put out my first legitimate solo album. So we're sparing no expense, man.
What about the Odd Thin Lizzy show? Because I know the door was open for playing a few Lizzy shows, and it's 50th anniversary next year. Is that still open for you?
Definitely. The beauty of that is it's not a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Whatever happens. And those types of things generally get scheduled far enough in advance that it doesn't conflict with other things. You know what I mean?
Damon, it's been great talking about the past and the future as well, especially the future. Best luck with the rest of the tour, and we will see you at the end of the year in Sheffield.
You are absolutely one of my favorite interviews, brother.
Thank you,
I'm excited that we got to do this, and thank you. Thanks for everything, man.
Really appreciate it.